What's up, y'all? Nefertiti, also known as the Corny Rainbow, here again. And today I am doing a sew along for you guys for my new Know Me Fall Pattern 2055. And if you haven't already, there is a sew along for view A. In this sew along, we're only going to be doing view B, which are the cargo sweatpants. So let's go ahead and get started. Grab your right upper front and your right lower front, and we're going to go ahead and pin them together. Should have a double notch, so match those up. Be sure to transfer all your pocket placement lines and your dots for your flaps. We've got a lot of them on this pattern, so go ahead and head over to the machine and stitch at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, attaching your upper right front to your lower right front. All right, once you've stitched together your right front, we're going to work on our left front pieces. So go ahead and grab your left side front and your left lower front piece and pin them together at the sides. Grab your left upper front and your left middle front. All right, so you're going to want to match up all your notches, and for your left middle front, match it up to your left upper front. You should also meet your pocket placement lines together. So go ahead and stitch your left upper and middle together, and then your left side and your left lower side together. On our left side, I've gone ahead and pressed and serged my seam allowance down. I also did some top stitching. The pattern instructions have you pressing your seam allowance upward, but I am using a darker thread and wanted to press my seam allowance downward on this middle section. It's totally a preference. You can press it upward if you like and top stitch on the upper left side or in the middle. Also press the seam allowances towards the lower left front and top stitched as well. Let's go ahead and pin our upper to our lower. All right, go ahead and stitch at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Finish off your raw edge, and if you like, you can top stitch as well. Put your left front to the side. Grab one of your contrasting pockets and go ahead and fold under and press 1/4 of an inch seam allowance on all of your pockets. We're going to fold at our fold line with right sides together. We're going to stitch at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance on both sides. So if you're looking at my pocket like what's going on right here, I used some old sweatpants that I had on hand to create this contrasting look. Disregard the pocket on the top. We are stitching here. Go ahead and head over to the machine and stitch down 5/8 of an inch seam allowance at our fold line on both sides. Trim down your excess. Turn your pocket right side out. Once you've pressed in the remaining seam allowance on your pocket, you're going to go ahead and baste down the upper edge that we folded, and then you're going to top stitch right along that basting stitching, and you can do a second optional top stitching at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So go ahead and do that, and we're going to put our pocket on our front right leg. Grab your right front, and now we're going to place our pocket on our placement line. All right, I moved my pocket up just a little bit because I want my pocket to be a little bit higher, but this is preference. You can place your pocket on the placement line, or if you feel like you want to move the pocket up or down a little bit, go right ahead. Let's head over to the machine and edge stitch our pocket down. Back stitch at the beginning and the end of your stitching. All All right, we've edge stitched our pocket down. Go ahead and create the last 5 pockets the same exact way that we did here, and we're going to move on to the next step. All right, go ahead and grab 2 of your flaps, and you should have one that is interfaced, pin. All right, so we're only going to be stitching on the outer edge at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Leave this opening here so that we can turn the flap right side out. Trim your seam allowances down. Give everything a good press. All right, go ahead and place your pocket on your pocket placement on your left leg. Go ahead and pin down. All right, now grab your flap. You should have markings. Go ahead and match up your basting stitches with your placement line. All right, let's head over to the machine and we're going to edge stitch our pocket down, and we're going to base stitch along our seam line here for our flap. Go ahead and trim down some of this excess for our flap here, and then we're going to fold down and press and top stitch. All right, now we're top stitching our flap so that we're encasing the raw edge that we just cut off there. All right, once you stitch down your flap and your pocket on your left front piece, we're going to match our 2 front pieces together at our notches. We're only going to be stitching the center front seams here, so go ahead and match up your notches with right sides together. All right, head over to the machine and stitch this down at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Go ahead and grab your upper right back. All right, so we have our upper right back, middle back, and lower back. We're going to stitch all of these together. You should have notches on the bottom of each piece, so I've gone ahead and matched them up right sides together. Head over to the machine and stitch each seam at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. You're going to also press your seams up, and if you like, you can also top stitch like we did on our front leg pieces. Now we're going to work on our upper left back. So put this to the side, pin your upper left back to your left back, and then you're going to pin your left back to your middle back, and then your middle back is going to pin with right sides together to your lower left back. All right, go ahead and stitch all seams at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Give everything a good press, and meet me back here. So once you finish both of your back leg pieces, go ahead and attach your pocket on your pocket placement line, and then we're going to attach at our back center seam with right sides together. Go ahead and pin. Go ahead and stitch at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. We've stitched together our back center seam. Now we're going to grab our yoke back and matching our notches on the lower end here. You should have also transferred your markings for your pocket placement on the right side only. Go ahead and match up those notches right sides together. Go ahead and stitch down at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and press your seams towards your back yoke. Once you've given everything a good press, and I went ahead and I edge stitched my seam allowance down, and I also serged my raw edges on the inside. Now we're going to match up this pocket on the back right side. So grab one of your contrasting pockets. You should have markings on your back yoke. Match those up. All right, we've stitched our back pocket down. Now we're going to attach our side pockets. All right, so go ahead and pin one of your pocket pieces to your back and your front. You should have markings on your pocket. All right, once you've attached your pockets to your back, go ahead and grab your front piece and do the same for your front. All right, so on your front and your back pocket, stitch down at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance and then press your seams towards your pockets. And then we're going to understitch our front pockets only. So let's head over to the machine and go ahead and stitch down our front pockets. We're stitching the pocket down at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. All right, now we're going to understitch, pressing our seam towards our pocket. We are only doing this on our front pockets. All right, go ahead and stitch down your other front pocket the same exact way, and then stitch your back pockets down at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. All right, now we're going to stitch our pockets together, and we're only going to be stitching down our side seam. So go ahead and match your front to your back. All right, once you have both of your pockets and your side seams pinned down, go ahead and head over to the machine, and we're going to be stitching at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance from beginning of our side seam to our marking. We're going to leave this opening here and then start stitching again from the next dot all the way down our side seam. Then we are going to stitch down our pocket at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Do both sides, and we're going to attach our side cargo pockets. Once you have closed off your pocket and stitched down your side seam, you can optionally stitch down some top stitching on your pocket opening. I added bar tacks just for a little bit more security around the pocket. And then you're going to want to press your pockets towards the front and then baste down your pocket. Now we're going to attach one of our last two cargo pockets on our side seam here. All right, go ahead and stitch down both of your side pockets in the same manner that we did our last flap pocket. All right, once we have sewn down our cargo pockets on both sides, now we're going to pin our inseams together with right sides together. All right, go ahead and head over to the machine and stitch your inseam at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, once you have sewn your inseams together, now we're going to put our sweatpants to the side for a second, and we're going to work on our waistband. Go ahead and add your buttonholes, and again, I did use already existing sweatpants, so I didn't have fabric long enough to cut this on the fold. So just disregard this seam here, but I added a little bit of interfacing. If you like, you can add just a little square of where you're going to place your buttonhole of your fleece fabric, and then go ahead and add your buttonholes. You should also have some markings, so be sure that you transfer all of your markings to your waistband. We're going to go ahead and match right sides together. We are going to stitch in between those markings, leaving the opening so that we can get our elastic in. And that opening should be on the opposite end of your buttonhole. So if your buttonholes are closer towards you, the opening should be on the top edge of your waistband. All right. So go ahead and stitch about 1 inch until we get to this needle here. And then we're going to leave this opening here and then stitch down the remaining portion of our waistband down here. All right, once you've stitched your waistband together and pressed your center back seams open, you should have an opening in the back. I've gone ahead and I've matched wrong sides together. So I have my buttonholes in the front here, and then I have my opening in the back. Right side, wrong side. Let's go ahead and pin this to our sweatpants. So you want to make sure that you're matching up your notches. And once we flip that upward, our buttonholes will be in the front. Our seams will match up nicely. Go ahead and pin. Where I have clips is where I should meet my side seam. You should also have a marking there on your waistband. Go ahead and match up your markings. Go ahead and stitch down your waistband at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then stitch again at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. If you have a serger, you can finish off your raw edges with your serger. All right, once you've attached your waistband and you've cleaned everything up, I have a method outside of the pattern instructions that I like to use for sweatpants, or really anything that I'm going to be using an elastic waistband on. And instead of using 2 of your elastic guides for the top and the bottom of your waistband, and then inserting your drawstring in the center, I like to use a wider piece of elastic about the width of my waistband. So this is a 2-inch wide elastic band, and you're still going to use your elastic guide to measure this out, but instead of inserting the 2 elastics on the top and the bottom, once you've created your encasing stitches, we're going to go ahead and insert the elastic, feed it through, and then we're going to stitch and also stretch at the same time. Once we've done that, then we're going to add in our drawstring. You want to make sure that your elastic didn't twist or turn while you were feeding it through. Go ahead and zigzag stitch after you have overlapped your elastic, and then we're going to adjust our gathering here. All right, you can see I went ahead and I finished off my elastic with a zigzag stitch, and then I fed everything through. So what you're going to do is just give it a good tug, give your waistband a good tug. And if you notice that you have gathering in some areas more than others, just continue to tug. You might just need to adjust the gathering by hand. So now go ahead and slip stitch your opening closed. All right, once you've slip stitched your waistband closed, let's go ahead and head over to the machine and form our casing for our drawstring. All right, so I like to start in the back, and you're just going to be stretching your waistband slightly. The drawstring area is going to be a little bit more exaggerated and wider. So I'm stitching my first stitch at about a little over 3/8 of an inch. And we're going to be stitching through the elastic. So just make sure that you give it a slight tug, all right? And you want to make sure that you're doing this on the right side of your garment. The stitch width that I'm using is 3.40. All right, now we're going to do our last stitch on the edge here, on the bottom edge. So same thing, we're still stretching as we're stitching. All right, now through your buttonholes, go ahead and insert your drawstring. All right, once you've put your drawstring through your buttonholes, you can go ahead and start to adjust. And you can see how much more sturdier your waistband is versus using the 2 elastics on the top row and the bottom row. You just have a more sturdier, professional looking waistband. Now we're going to move on to the last step, which is attaching our leg bands. So you should have notches on the bottom of your pant leg. Grab your leg band. You should also have notches on your leg band on the side. And I've gone ahead and pinned Stitch down your leg band at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and fold down wrong sides together. Then we're going to stretch to fit on our pant leg. All right, once you've folded down your leg band wrong sides together and you've pinned everything down, go ahead and match up your inseam with the inside seam of your pant leg. With right sides together, go ahead and pin. All right, let's head over to our machine. I'm going to be serging my raw edge only. If you don't have a serger, you can base stitch, and then you can stitch again over your basting, making sure that you're stretching the band to fit, and then stitch again at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Then you're going to trim down your seam allowance close to your last stitching, and then we are all done. Let's go ahead and head over to the serger. All right, y'all, we're all done unless you want to add some snap buttons or buttons to any of your pockets. You can even add Velcro for a little detail. All right, y'all, we are all done. Thanks for sewing along with me. I would love to see your creations, so please tag me and also Know Me Patterns on all social media platforms, and check me out here also on YouTube at The Corny Rainbow. Until next time, peace.